ತ್ರಿಜಗ ವಂದಿತ ಗಣಪ ಮಾಡುವುದು ಮತಿಗೆ ಮಂಗಳವ. ಭಾರತೀಯ ಸನ್ನಿಹಿತ ಲೆಕ್ಕಿಗರ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಭಾರತ ಪ್ರಾಂತೀಯ ಪರಿಷತ್ತು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಶಾಖೆಯ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ನಡೆಸುತ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ 2 ದಿನಗಳ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳ 2ನೇ ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಪಾದಾರ್ಪಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಈ ಶುಭ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಮಿಸಿದಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಕಲ ಸಜ್ಜನ ಸನ್ಮಾರ್ಗ ನಿರತ ಸನ್ನಿಹಿತ ಲೆಕ್ಕಿಗ ಸಖ ಸಖಿಯರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಹೃತ್ಪೂರ್ವಕವಾದಂತಹ ಸ್ವಾಗತವನ್ನು ಕೋರ್ತೇನೆ. Friends, today is an interesting series of subjects that we are going to discuss about the startup fundraising and M&A, including the exit strategy and things like that. One of the most important points which we wanted to have a session this morning is about the promoter's perspective. What are the precautions need to be taken care by the promoters? Because most of the startup companies means many small CA firms who are going to support them to get them ready for the due diligence, to get them ready for the funding, how to do the negotiations when big investors are coming in front of them, how to get prepared, and what are the precautions to be taken by the promoters. From that perspective, they will largely depend upon chartered accountants, and chartered accountants are in a better position to advise them in the right manner. Therefore, we felt let us have a session like this, and where the promoter side, the person having a lot of experience in this field, would like to share his thoughts and experiences to us. Therefore, I would like to request Shri Devendra Kumar Agrawal, who is going to handle the subject on the precautions to be taken by promoters. I request our past chairman, Shri Satchidananda, to escort the speaker and also present welcome flower. Thank you, sir. Friends, Devendra, I'll take a minute or two to introduce you. It's my pleasure to introduce you. Friends, Devendra Agrawal is founder Dexter Capital in early 2013 with a mission to help entrepreneurs scale up smoothly by simplifying investor research, term sheets negotiations, and overall fundraising process. Before Dexter, he served as the CFO of Resonance, a leading education academy, and led the whole process to raise private equity funding of 100 crores from a choice of marquee investor groups. He also worked with a private equity firm, Olympus Capital, as an investment professional. He carries a rich experience in the field of startup funding, and particularly the precautions to be taken by the promoters in case of an M&A deal or the fundraising deal. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome him once again. A big round of applause. Over to you, sir.
Thanks everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I shifted to Bangalore like very recently, close to 1.5 years. Found it like extremely vibrant city, very welcoming, and very thankful to ICI community to sort of invite me here and sort of allowing me to share my thoughts. Before I start, I just wanted to know, like, in the audience, how many of you are businessmen or entrepreneurs? How many of you are CAs? All. Okay, great. Sure. So I think I'll try to structure it both from entrepreneur businessman perspective, also from, let's say, as a CA, when you are advising your clients, what sort of value add, etc. That can be done for your clients. Okay. So I think capital raising as a activity starts for any promoter Once promoter reaches to let's say certain size, now you can divide the promoters into two components. One, companies which are more in growth or traditional sort of businesses, a company which are in more tech sort of businesses. Promoters which are more in growth or traditional, which is let's say consumer business or manufacturing business or a business which is in healthcare, pharma, etc. Typically, when they go on raising capital on equity side, they will typically go to three of these entities like equity funds or HNIs or let's say family offices. And whenever they raise the capital, obviously the equity that comes in would have to follow a particular process. Given equity does not carry a fixed return like debt, so the investor wants to protect himself using certain clauses, etc. And those are the clauses which comes into picture when you are negotiating that the document from the investor perspective or a client perspective. Similarly, in the technology ventures, technology is like anything. It could be on a fintech, edtech, anything where you use a technology product to solve the customer problem. So in this particular scenario, even a company which may not be earning revenue, you may even advise the company to raise capital. So first challenge that you may sort of let's say have in that particular company, even how to value that particular company. Because if we let's say go 30 years back, valuation typically is let's say based on whatever the fixed asset you had, whatever value or goodwill etc. you had. The current valuation methodology where we are using, where a company which is not even making revenue and let's say gets valued at 30-40 crore was not there, right? So in technology, there are twin challenges. One, how to establish a value, and one, let's say you establish the value, how to again advise on the entrepreneurial part. So first, I'll sort of try to cover. I'll try to cover those aspects where all these phenomena, where an investor would ask for certain rights, and a promoter has to see what are the rights which are sort of appropriate, what are the rights which are probably I need to be careful. Those needs to be negotiated. So first of all, why these rights come into the picture? Okay. So let's say if we define these investors, again these investors could be either a HNI or family office, in which case capital is of that person only. Like he is the person who is decision making for capital. Even if the person's capital, you would expect a certain return. The return is not in the form of, look, I gave you 100 rupee and you have to return me 12 or 15 or 18 rupee every year as an interest, and ultimately you have to return the principal. What it happens is, if he invests 100 rupee, he might get like 15-20% stake, and after 2 or 3 or 4 years later, he needs to sell the stake to, let's say, earn his return. The question that investor would ask is, how do I protect myself? Why investor would ask those questions? Because once he puts the money, he has a limited control on what the promoter does. Because promoter is still running the company, he probably would still own the largest shareholding. He is in control of, let's say, all the bank, etc. transaction. So tomorrow, if the promoter, let's say, transfer the money for a uses which is non-productive uses, then how does the investor protect himself? Or company is doing well, but let's say promoter does not provide an exit to the investor, right? Or promoter provides an exit, but the exit is not at fair valuation. Or promoter tomorrow raises the capital where by virtue of raising capital it dilutes the investor. So these are the perspectives due to which investor would want to protect himself. If I talk about private equity or venture capital fund, private equity and venture capital funds, the way they are structured is basically people who are representing those funds are fund managers. So they are essentially custodian of some investors and they are representing them. Because of that, they need to follow a process, because honestly they are making the decision of somebody else's money, 50-100 crore, and if they are poor in their diligence, their ethics, their integrity might be questioned. How did you allow that happen? Why all of you guys have done a lot of diligence for your clients, right? Why you allowed the investment to happen in this company without proper diligence? If there were issues, why did you investment to happen? After investment, what are the rights which investor have to protect the investments, right? So from those perspective, you as a CAs, or you need to, let's say, think that why an investor asking certain right, that's the perspective. Now if I go for those rights, so whenever sort of, let's say you're advising, there are three elements in any deal making, and those three elements, the way we define is three component. So typically whenever I have met the entrepreneurs, they see, look, this is my business, what is the maximum value I can get? Value, till the value is realized or is a liquid value, is a paper value, right? And it has multiple sort of components. When you are building the company, we advise any promoter to look for three perspectives. One is quality of the investor, second is how fair are the terms, and third is the right value or right valuation. The reason we emphasize on the quality of investor most is because even if investor is on your board and he is not controlling shareholder, he is only in, let's say, in advisory capacity, the investor can have a pretty decent influence on your decision making just by virtue of let's say asking right questions. Okay. Now if an investor is a good quality investor, he might push a company in a very good direction where company can do, let's say, wonders. If tomorrow you an investor have a continuous difference in strategy, or he is not somebody who you gel with, right? You actually every quarter in every board meeting you would say, look, I want to take company in this direction. Investor say, look, why? He doesn't have control. You can still go ahead and do it, but because he is asking a lot of questions and which you have to justify, so still the decision making process on your part is delayed. So the investor that you need has to be of good quality, and obviously the finding good quality investor is like nobody has written on the face that I'm good or I'm bad, right? The only way to sort of say check is if you know somebody in whose company they have invested and you talk to those promoters. Look, this investor, when he was with you, was he right? Was he fair to you? Was he advising fairly? Was he contributing to the growth? Please assume that I would say large majority investor who himself have been entrepreneurs or who are senior people who have done investing quite a lot. They would be somebody who would be acting constructively to help your company grow. When I say constructively means if you are taking a large decision for your capital, then they would want to say, look, okay, we are taking this decision, have we done competitive analysis, have we done those things? So they would try to make it very constructive. If we are doing an acquisition, then they will say, look, how you are valuing the other company whom you are acquiring, what are the rights, etc. you are doing, right? They will also bring the perspective from certain rights. If they feel that our team bandwidth is not right, they would push you guys to hire certain people, right? So that's those kind of intervention, though you may still find them intrusive, could be a welcome intrusion. Welcome. Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So those are the right thing, but let's say investor, when probably he writes his own sort of agenda, look, this is exactly we should do, etc. That might be slightly difficult. So out of the three components, the first thing we value, and that's especially true for your first time investor, is you should get an investor you can be very, very comfortable with. If you are not comfortable with an investor, the marriage is for a limited, like prefixed time, like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but that could be a difficult sort of journey. So that part, ensuring that part is extremely critical. Second part is terms, and that's a large part I'll cover. Whenever you are raising capital, the first agreement you sign, which is called in legal parlance like shareholder agreement, and a large part of that also becomes article association, which all of you guys are very familiar, right? A company is run based on article association. So that becomes very, very critical when you are signing an agreement with SHA, with the investor. And that agreement would largely determine your behavior and your behavior with respect to the investor, how exactly you want to do. It will also define your investor right interest with respect to the company, and those will be very, very hard negotiated. I think what you need to be aware is when you are raising capital, obviously you are in need of the capital. You want the capital to come to you due to whatever reason. You want to grow. So you may be slightly impatient. However impatient you are, what you need to be aware is what are those rights which I can sort of sign off comfortably? What are those rights where I need to be very careful? What are those rights where probably I may not be comfortable, I should not even sign even at losing the deal. So those are the, I would say, three aspects that we need to be aware. We'll cover that part in the detail. And third part is the value. Value is simply, let's say, valuation. I think when you're looking for the valuation, everybody wants to maximize the valuation, right? But valuation, while we as a CS determine valuation by like DCF, etc., but that's a valuation we put in paper to ensure that we take care of company law, income tax law. Valuation in the market is what you are ready to offer to investor, what investor is ready to offer to you, right? So I think there what you need to take care of this thing is the valuation that you determine for your company probably should be a right value, and more importantly, what is the stake that you are diluting? Because if you dilute 5%, 10%, 25%, 26%, 30%, 40%, that has bearing on how much influence and control the investor would have. So there are two components to value. One is value, and second is how much money you are raising, because of which what is the dilution that sort of, let's say, you are having. So I'll cover in remaining part what are the rights that you should, let's say, sort of try to negotiate. What I have done is I have made like very small snippets, and I'll try to cover. I'll try to wrap that up like in 10-15 minutes, and then I'll open it for all the questions that you guys have. So first thing is choosing the right instrument. What is the instrument that you are having to raise your capital? Are you guys familiar with different instruments when you are raising equity capital? Somebody can, let's say, tell me one or two instruments.
Convertible debentures.
Right.
Or optionally convertible, compulsorily convertible.
Right.
Equity.
Right. So I think there are multiple sort of instruments that are defined in our company law. These are like globally also they are very popular. So I think what we need to be aware is one of the simplest instrument is equity, which is simple equity, which is when we incorporate the company when the equities are allocated to the promoters. So that's like simple equity shares. Obviously, simple equity shares come with whatever right that government has defined. If you have X% equity share, these are let's say your rights, etc. There's other instrument are CCPS. CCPS is a compulsory convertible preference shares. In CCPS, you can also have OCPS. OCPS is optionally convertible preference shares. Similarly, CCPS, you also have CCD. CCD is compulsory convertible debenture. Like CCD, you can have also OCD, which is optionally convertible debentures. You can also have RPCS, redeemable preference shares. So there are multiple instruments that are available in the hands of promoters, like which instrument I should raise the capital. Choosing the right instrument is extremely critical to lay out the foundation, like how I am putting the rights, how I am giving equity to the investor. When we are raising equity, if ultimate intention is this is a pure equity, there is no, let's say, quasi-equity or debt element to it. Typically, most popular instruments are CCPS and CCD. And even if we are doing the transaction at fixed valuation, so CCPS and CCD, a lot of time confusion comes that we should use it only if it's a convertible instrument, like valuation is dependent on future event, future profitability or something. Then only it should be used. Even you are raising capital in a very fixed valuation, 60 CR, 100 CR, whatever the value. Even then you can use the CCPS and CCD. The question is, why CCPS, why CCD, not straight equity? Anybody would like to answer the question?
Because they would like to keep it flexible. Now say there is an annual dilution or anything like that. Once you take a direct equity, you can't change it. But once you have a CCPS,
Once you take direct equity, what you cannot do?
you can't change the holding percentage.
Right.
Like something like a CCPS, you can keep it flexible.
Correct. So CCPS and CCD is asked more by investors. The reason they ask it because tomorrow, if let's say valuation of that particular instrument needs to be changed, and there will be certain cases where it could be required to be changed. One of the certain cases, let's say anti-dilution. Other case could be with your issuing ESOPs to your employees, etc. So if let's say tomorrow the value itself needs to be changed, by issuing CCPS you can just change the conversion formula. So every CCPS needs to be converted to equity. It could be 1:1 or whatever the ratio. By just changing that formula, you can easily change the valuation method on a pre-agreed defined methodology. So that's one reason CCPS is used. Any other reason apart from this due to which CCPS or CCD is used?
CCD is used mainly because if the venture fails or there is a problem, they can exercise rights as a lender.
Correct. So that's for CCD, but if not CCD, even then, even without valuation, if there is no valuation, even people use CCPS. Why CCPS? Why not equity?
Liquidation rights. They have more difference than liquidity.
That's correct. So apart from ability to change the value in future, there are two other aspects when you do CCPS. One is a preference shares has higher preference over equity. Obviously, it has a lesser preference compared to debt element. I think the most important reason why CCPS is used is any investor would prefer a lot of rights. Rights like anti-dilution, liquidation preference. Those rights can only be assigned if you're using an instrument like CCPS. Because CCPS allows you ability to have a bilateral agreement between an investor and promoter. That's the reason CCPS is used. A number of rights would not be that much enforceable if you are using an equity instrument, let's say not a CCPS as an instrument. So CCPS has basically multiple aspects. That's why CCPS as an instrument is used by investor. And I would say this is one of the most preferred instrument. A lot of investors also use CCD. I think difference in CCD and CCPS is out of the preference order when it comes to the liquidation event, CCD would have a higher preference compared to the CCPS. So defining an instrument is very critical. Even when you are defining CCPS, there are other elements which is it cumulative, non-cumulative, is it participatory, non-participatory, what is the duration, typically CCPS a duration of 20 years, what is the conversion duration, mandatory conversion duration. Those are the elements that you need to define when you are putting CCPS in instrument. Now I'll come to more important aspects. When you are drafting or you are helping your client advising on investor agreement, there are a lot of terms which will come, and then where these terms come, first draft which they will send will be term sheet, which is typically non-binding term sheet. Term sheet is a little like LOI from investor, which defines, look, this is the amount I want to invest. In lieu of that amount, this is the stake I want to take, and these are the rights and terms I want to take. The non-binding instrument, the term sheet would get translated into an SHA or an SSA. If there is a transfer of share, then probably an SPA. Post the due diligence. After that, probably investor will do due diligence in the company, and if he is satisfied with the due diligence, then he would, let's say, get into an agreement. And those are the terms which will come. So first of all, we need to be aware that just having those terms is not onerous. Any fair investor who is investing equity in your company, please be aware he is putting his hard-earned cash or somebody else hard-earned cash. So he needs to have those agreements, have those rights. I think more important is what is written in those rights. Is it a right which is I should be okay with? Is it a right which is standard right, or is this a right which I should negotiate? Okay, I'll go through a number of those terms during the course of my discussion. Feel free to have any question, and then we'll throw open for question. So one of the right is liquidation preference. Now liquidation preference is a right in two events. If tomorrow there is a liquidation event, which is a statutory sort of liquidation event, where company was not doing well and company is going through liquidation. Second is company actually had a liquidity event where 2 years, 3 years later somebody wanted to buy majority of the share. That is also comes in this thing. So what liquidation preference defines? Liquidation preference defines out of multiple stakeholders, which is creditors, both debt providers and other things, out of preference share or CC holders, and out of promoters or equity shareholders or other shareholders. How exactly liquidation proceeds will be distributed, right? And that's a very critical right for any promoter to see what is the right order in which I should negotiate this clause. Lot of investors would negotiate that we need 1x participatory liquidation preference. A lot of times you will also see that we need 1.5x participatory or 2x participatory liquidation preference. Sometimes they will say that we need 1x non-participatory liquidation preference. Any of you have an idea of what do these mean? 1x, 2x, 1.5x or 3x and participatory versus non-participatory.
One invested into 1.5x or 2x.
Right. So the two elements, one is what is threshold 1x, 1.5x, 2x, 3x and one is the participatory versus non-participatory. What it means is in a liquidity event, once we have paid out any creditor which is debt provider, when it comes to distribution in shareholders, a person who is holding CCPS, the liquidation preference will say if it is 1x non-participatory, that means the right, the holder of this right have a option that instead of being ordinary shareholders, he can exercise this right, which means he will first get his capital. If he is invested, let's say 30 crore for 30% stake, okay? And the companies, so 30%, 30 crore, 30% stake means when he invested, company value was 100 crore. If tomorrow company is being sold at let's say 80 crore, so at 30% stake, now his value is 24 crore only. He would say, no, first return by 30 crore, then we will determine what happens with 50 crore. Okay? So if he is holding 1x, he will get 30 crore first. If he is holding 1.5x, that means he will get 45 crore. If he is holding 2x, that means he will get 60 crore. So that is 1.5, 2x means. Now participatory versus non-participatory means, if he has participatory, that means after you are paying 30 crore in lieu of 1x that is defined, whatever remaining proceeds, so 80 minus 30 is 50. If it's participated, then remaining 50 will distributed in all shareholders in lieu of their shareholding, which means double dip. If first got is 30, then he's also saying that remaining proceeds are with my shareholder. So imagine a scenario, I'll give a scenario, if it would be 2x participatory, right? And you did not consult a lawyer as a promoter, you did not apply or not, you signed it. Tomorrow, due to whatever reason, you agreed to sell the company 2 years later at 80 crore. Now you feel the guy who provided me 30 crore, he is actually taking 60 crore and then remaining 20 crore, 20 into 30, 66 crore. So he has taken 66 crore, I am only getting 40 crore. There will be definite litigation. While you have signed the agreement, you will say, I am not agreeing to this, I am not honoring the agreement. Right? So what happened? Because of probably poor understanding of promoter would fight with investor and the fight will be slightly long, and if the fight goes in an international court in arbitration, probably award will be in the favor of investor as long as agreement etc. are done pretty nicely. Right? Only thing is, because there is a litigation, by and not by the company, so there is no event. So investor will say, boss, take a 2x, 1.5x, settle. But you need to appreciate this clause at the signing of agreement, and you need to be very, very comfortable with what you are signing. Question is why this clause exists. The clause exists because investor says I am an equity investor. I have come with the expectation at least with a 20-25% return. If I would have expected a fixed return, 8% return, I would have put a liquid fund. If I would have put a 12% return, I would have given to a corporate bond. If I would have 15% this thing, I would have given to some corporate who is my friend. Obviously, I am increasing my risk, but I am getting it, right? So I should get my return. And I am doing that because I am putting money in your company. You, as a promoter, would say, look, boss, you take an equity risk. Tomorrow, my company would have been 1,000 crore, you would have gotten 55% return. So in some certain cases, you get 55, certain cases 0. You took an equity risk because you were greedy. So argument-wise, it will sort of let's say continue. Where it sort of let's say comes is, maybe a fair thing is, if let's say due to whatever reason, if company did not do well, because you provide investment, and if there are profits, maybe I will provide you certain thing. The certain thing I will provide you a principal, which is 1x non-participatory. When it becomes non-participatory, that means either you can be a preference shareholder and take your money, or you can be shareholder. You cannot do both. So decide, आपको अपना पैसा लेना है जो डाला था, or you want to take away, you want to be shareholder and do that. So ideally, from a promoter perspective, when you are advising the promoter, you need to argue then let's go ahead with the next non-participatory, not as a participatory. And if you go back and research, maybe you can research, let's say, a case like Redbus, where despite company being sold at 800 crore, the promoters did not make that much money. The money that they should have made. And those are one of the clauses where it got into effect. So this is extremely important clause, very very simple clause. We do not put our thought into it. Tomorrow it can create a very substandard outcome for your promoter. And obviously 4-5 years later, these events will come into picture.
Excuse me, sir.
Sure.
What if it is silent? If the liquidation clause itself is not there?
If liquidation clause itself is not there, then it's advantageous for the promoter, because in that case you are not define how the liquidation will be treated.
So it is going to be normal participatory.
Right. So what will come into picture? You need to see CCPS terms. When you are issuing CCP, you need to define CCPS terms. Okay. If a CCPS is a participatory, even if it is not defined, okay, it will be ambiguous situation between promoter and investor in the future. CCPS participatory means he can exercise as well as become a shareholder. Because you are not defining 1x or 0x or this thing. As a promoter, you would argue like there's no x, right? Only thing is you can convert or you can take your money. The investor might say, look, I have not defined it, but at least I will expect some return. So there will be ambiguity. So in this case, generally better is define and have it clarified rather than not define it. So this is on liquidation preference. Second important aspect is anti-dilution. Anybody understand like what anti-dilution is and in what cases anti-dilution comes into picture, or why anti-dilution is an important clause to be part of agreement?
If there is a down round, subsequently the investor tries to protect his stake and says that I need a higher percentage.
Correct. So whenever equity investment happens, equity investment, whatever value, while there are like n number of methods to define value, there is a negotiated value between investor and the this thing. And sometimes we feel that it's a fair value at that time, but what happens due to market scenario changing, due to company not doing well, company may not be able to raise capital in future at a value which was agreed today, higher than that. Now in that case, let's say investor raised equity, let's say 20 crore equity at a 80 crore value, which means pre-money value is 80 crore, post-money is 100 crore. After 2 years, let's say investor is promoter is raising more capital, but he is not able to raise at 100 crore. He is getting an offer at, let's say, 50 crore. And in that case, he is raising capital. Investor will feel, boss, I invested 20 crore in expectation that I will earn some return, but my value today is actually 10 crore. So that's not fair. At least you should sort of compensate me with that. Now, as if you are an investor, you would say, look, doesn't matter, your company become down. My 20 crore should at least be 20 crore. Or at least I should get minimum return as a fixed return. Right? So he would say, I put a ratchet such that if it's a full ratchet, which means my 20 crore should be 20 crore. So you should issue more shares to me. You can go ahead and save your company by issuing a lower valuation. It's okay with me. But you should issue more shares to me such that it becomes this thing. So that's a full ratchet. If he says that I need to also have some certain IRR, then the full ratchet actually dips even further. He will even get more shares to do that. As a promoter, you would argue, sir, I agree and I know that I should have made an effort, etc. But look, the situation that happened is not in my control. If you would have NBFC and after demonetization it happened, sir, demonetization Modi ji did, and because I don't have any control the event, that's like force majeure event or material adverse condition for me, so I can't do that. Obviously, that doesn't mean that I'll shut down my company. I would still raise my capital, and there's an equity risk you took, and it's not done. It may happen that you may still raise, your value might increase in future. So he would argue, okay, look, I honestly don't buy your argument. Whatever shareholding you have, that you should have, and whatever value. You took an equity risk, so there's loss. Obviously, it can conflict. So typically, this has been, I would say, debated, negotiated. Today, what is standard is a broad-based weighted average method, which means that the value that would sort of this investor would ascribe this would be weighted average of what he put value in his round versus whatever value he is raising in future round. There is a formula. That formula is part of the agreement itself that should be documented, and it should also be documented how exactly this mechanism will be affected. There are two ways it gets affected. One, you change the conversion ratio. So you would say that, let's say it was 1-to-1 conversion from CCPs to equity, it will become 1 to whatever 1.2 or 1.08 or 1.1, right? So broad-based weighted average would define that this investor who put at the higher value and today's lower value, will get more shares. It can also be done by defining two other ways. If you don't change the conversion, either company will issue more shares to him at a lower value. You can define that, but then it will get stuck into valuation game. Because today company law has become more rigorous, so you cannot offer two different investors at the same time at two different values. It can also be done by promoter transferring more share to the promoter. There are 2-3 ways that can be done. The cleanest is by changing the conversion ratio. And that's where importance of having CCPS or CCDs instrument once again comes into the play. Right? So anti-dilution is another component that if you have to advise a promoter, then you need to advise that you should go with a broad-based weighted average mechanism. Third is business plan. Business plan is a document that you present to investor even when you are pitching to him for raising capital. You as a promoter is always very optimistic about your company. So you will take, sir, I am already at 20 crore revenue and I am already doing like 1 crore profit. If I get 30 crore revenue, I will actually make my 20 crore company at 500 crore. And you will, if you invest let's say 10 crore, 20 crore at 100 crore, by which you get 20% at 500 crore revenue, I will probably have a EBITDA of let's say 50 crore. At that time, your company will be 1000 crore in value, which means you have made 10x return. This is typically promoter will come and tell an investor. But investor will ask people, yeah, I get hundreds of people a daily, right? So how it happens? So you have to tell me viable plan, and you tell me why your plan is viable. You will also see there are 10 other competitors who are doing it. How can it happen? Today you are at like 20 crore, suddenly you will become like 500 crore with this capital. So how you will, what is your year growth, what is, where you will buy the material from, how your cost of goods will reduce, how you acquire team, what is OPEX. So he will ask a very detailed business plan from you, which is again prepared by CAs or people like us who are investment bankers, and he will say present the business plan to me. Okay, and also put in like how much capital you will use, raise, how you use the capital, all the elements will come in the business plan. So that becomes a document which you are presenting. And please be aware the document you are presenting, you prepare it with a lot of discipline, because that document will become ultimately part of your agreement as well. While the document is not something which is written in like wall and cannot change. With the investor permission, you can change the document every year. But what you cannot change is that you took capital home, or you bought a house, or you bought a nice car. Those are the things the investor would never allow you to do that. You might say that instead of 10 crore in capex, my capex becomes 12 crore because cost of material have increased, or because of delay in approval, I have to pay more cost, right? Those can happen. So business plan is a document which investor would ask you, look, I don't know about your business, you know about your business, so you need to tell me how does your business plan looks like. I should be able to ask intelligent question and cross question you why, if any element in the business plan is changing, why it is changing, right? If there is a material deviation in business plan which may amount to investors seeing that there could be an element of fraud, or there could be an element of negligence or gross negligence, these might even become part of event of default. Event of default would, as a clause, would be one of the most I would say serious clause in your agreement. So event of default we will discuss later. Then more importantly, you need to present a discipline sort of business plan, and this will come into that any changes in business plan you cannot do without permission of the investor. Which means tomorrow for a business you need to take 2 crore rupee from lender. You actually have to go and ask your investor, can I just take this 2 crore? You are doing a capex and your capex in business plan says that my capex is 5 crore. And actually capex has become 8 crore. Why do you have to spend 8 crore? You again have to ask your investor. So business plan obviously has like 10 sheets, multiple this thing, but you need to be aware of what plan you are presenting. It might happen the day you pitched, day you sign term sheet, day you sign agreement. There are different aspects that change in business plan. My advice is, even before signing agreement, if there are material changes, where material, you guys define materiality, you guys define materiality, but let's say it could be 2-3% change or 5% change or less than 10%, it's probably not material. But if it changes like the virtue of 23% of its error, it's better to correct that business plan before signing the agreement, rather than, let's say, go ahead with the plan and within 3 months or within 6 months you are changing it. If tomorrow, let's say, you sign an agreement in September and you presented that my March FY19 revenue and EBITDA is this, you presented him, let's say, 50 crore revenue, 10 crore profit, and actually your revenue 40 crore and your profit is, let's say, instead of 10 crore, your profit is 5 crore. The investor might even argue that you misrepresented facts to me. You can argue, but this is business, it might change. There are certain events. So those are the arguments you can still get. So there's no point having those heated debates in the future board meeting. It's better to have a disciplined business plan. A business plan as a document could have various references in agreement. During rights, affirmative rights, during event of default, during number of things, during board meeting discussion. So ensure that business plan as a document that you present is a disciplined sort of document. Third, and one of the very critical right is board rights. So any investor would say, look, I am not going to be part of your company day to day running your company. That's not my intention, and promoters don't want that as well. But if I am having a certain stake, which is, let's say, a reasonable stake, I would want to part of your company as a board member. And I will also define what are the actions you can take with my permission, what are the actions you can take without my permission, what are the situations you can even do board meeting without my presence, which is a quorum. So we would say, as long as my shareholding is X%, right, where X could be 10, 15, 25, I would be a board member. You would also say that constituents of board would be 3, 5, 7, and this is how the board would be represented. Any alteration in future board structure can only be done with my permission. So negotiating an appropriate board is very, very critical. You also need to think it through that as a promoter you might have to raise multiple rounds, which means your board might become sizable in future. So if you are giving this board right, you have to give it with appropriate shareholding. Typically any investor who is holding like 15% or more would ask for a board seat, and that could be non-negotiable clause for him, which you might have to give away. If there is an investor who is only holding 2%, 5% and who is an angel investor, probably it may not be wise to give him board seat, because if you give him board seat and you are not put a fall away clause. Fall away is if your shareholding falls below certain percentage in future round, your board seat will go away, right? Then you actually might have a problem, because your incoming investor might say, look, I cannot work with an angel investor in my board. The guy will make the board completely non-functional because he doesn't understand how it happens, right? So you need to be very, very careful of this right as well and how you are negotiating. Typically all institutional investors also ask for board observer seat. Board observer seat, you can give it away. Only nuisance it causes that you have another person in your board who might say anything. You as a chairman might say, like, guys, you cannot speak. But if you are board observer, typically in professional culture that doesn't happen. So this is a clause which a lot of people offer. The reason a lot of VC funds and PE funds ask, because they want to train their VPs and principals to become future board members. Because VP principals are people who have a lot of aggression but may not have that maturity. So they will negotiate that clause as a gesture towards their VP and principal. At least he will be happy he's part of a board of this company, or he will get trained in future. But for you need to be aware, do you want to allow board observers? Because if there are 3 investors, you have 3 board members, 3 board observers. Then you have 6 members and you have 2 promoters. Then there are 8 people in the board meeting, where 6 people are the people who are investor side. So obviously, while as a right, you are the controlling guy in the board, but there are people who might use their voice, volumes loud, so that you need to sort of, let's say, decide and sort of, let's say, negotiate with them, okay? When you are deciding board, I typically advise promoter to be chairman in all cases. The reason I advise, in US we have a lot of cases where promoters gets fired In India, that phenomena is literally unheard. Okay, the founder of a company gets fired in like 3 years. We are seeing this phenomena in India in this thing. What happens? You can be fired because of moral turpitude, misconduct, gross negligence. You can also be fired because of incompetence. And there are other clauses like vesting, etc., where you can be fired and you can lose your shareholding as well. Right? So, when you make the guy as a permanent chairman, no board meeting can happen without changing article association. Article association cannot change without having board meeting without AGM. So you inherently put a guy where the uncomfortable discussion which could have happened without that guy being the chairman, that can happen. For example, if it's a Tata case, if Saira Mistry would have been chairman in article association, doing a board meeting for Mr. Tata without Saira Mistry being part is difficult, in which case the sixth director who voted in favor of Mr. Tata would not probably vote. So with that single right, you are controlling how future event will sort of unfold. So you need to have fairly smart advisors to tell how exactly you can do. And this is a very simple thing to negotiate. 99% investors agree without thinking. Right? So we put it, a lot of smart investors say, no, if promoter is not available, how will we do the meeting? We cannot do the meeting if it becomes ill, so we cannot do it, we can change it, etc. Right? But we typically put it to protect that the main promoter remains part of board, and without his presence, you cannot. Even he being the promoter and chairman, you can discuss it. But imagine doing a discussion when the guy is chairman, you are discussing, look, you are incompetent, we have to remove you. Right? So these are the discussion which is sort of, let's say, part of sort of board discussion that you can sort of, let's say, do. I think maybe somebody needs to log on here. Yeah, sure. When we go for board, another most important clause that sort of comes, so board also have quorum. In quorum, you need to negotiate, in which case investor, the board meeting can happen without investor, in which case board meeting cannot happen without investor. A lot of people, a lot of time investor will put quorum that without representatives no board meeting can happen. Ideally that should not happen. Because for your company, if you have to open a bank account, you need to have board meeting. And investors are not free people, right? You ask them come tomorrow and they will come. Or you can say, look, I am doing board meeting, I can happen. So you need to devise a mechanism that these are certain rights where your presence is required, this is quorum. And these are the elements where your presence is not, if you are not there, it's not okay. You also need to negotiate a clause in board meeting where what happens if quorum is not complete, which means board meeting will get adjourned, which means the board meeting needs to happen next day, next week, whatever it's time. What happens if the investor is not coming for second time, third time? What if investor fund is become slightly non-functional, there are like only one guy out of five guys, he is not even present, he is fighting his own system, right? So you need to negotiate what happens if you are not present 2 or 3 times, right? So those are the clauses again sort of come into play. Sometimes those clauses are not detailed in an early stage scenario, but idea again is to detail those things to ensure that you are protecting your promoters very sort of widely. Another very, very important clause which is extremely critical both for promoter, both for investor is affirmative rights, which is you cannot do certain things in company without approval of investor, whether he is a board member or not, which is called affirmative right or veto right. The reason the investor has a veto right is he doesn't want you to do something where he is not even aware. If let's say he is an investor and you actually went ahead and did a rights issue at a very low valuation, right? While he may be protected at anti-dilution, but he would not even want that situation to arise. Because you might say, look sir, मैंने आपको चिट्ठी भेजी थी, आपको पहुंची और आपको मिली नहीं. So you obviously did not come for board meeting. We actually went and did. Yesterday you had a 20% shareholding. Today your shareholding is 2%. Wow. So he would say you cannot do any capital raise without my permission. You might say you got a buyer who is your friendly buyer and you said, look, I would buy the company. So I bought the company. He's a guy, somebody who doesn't care about Indian law. So he said, I can fight with the investor. You bought the company, you became rich, you sold the company. So he said, look, you cannot sell your company without my permission. You might say, look, I as a promoter am selling my shareholding. There are 3 promoters, one promoter is saying I am selling my shareholding. But if that promoter is a key person in the company and you 3 promoters might say, boss, you sell your shareholding, you start a new company. This company already 60% owned by shareholders, so what we as a promoter are making. So you, promoter will say, no, you cannot sell your shareholding without my permission. Tomorrow you might say, look, I want to start a new company. So there are a lot of rights promoter, investor will negotiate. These are affirmative rights that you cannot do without my permission. These are veto rights. And these veto rights control two ways. One, you need to take written permission even before board meeting happen. In board meeting, you cannot do a board meeting where affirmative right being discussed without permission of the investor. You need to negotiate these clauses very hard because sometimes investors become also very unreasonable. Sometimes they say that even if you are hiring a person who is a 20 lakh or more salary, you need to take my permission. Now you have gone and done a discussion with the guy and you have nearly made a verbal offer to the guy. You have to come and join. You send the approval to investor rejected. Then your credibility in front of the person you are hiring got down. You are in negotiation with somebody who you are doing commercial contract for 2 crore value and your agreement says that any contract above 1 crore value you have to do with my permission. So again you cannot do that. So these are the elements that you need to define in sort of let's say agreements. Fair terms on fresh issue capital. So sometimes in fresh issue capital they will ask for preemptive right. Preemptive right, whatever capital you are raising, I have a right to invest capital in proportion to my shareholding. Sometimes they may also ask super preemptive right or a super pro rata. That if you are raising capital, first I only will put capital. They may also ask ROF or ROFR. ROF is right of first offer. If you are thinking to raise capital, first come to me and tell me that I am raising capital, I will offer you value. If you accept the offer, you can go ahead and raise the capital from me. If you don't, then you can go ahead. They may also ask ROFR. Right of first refusal. You go do your work 6 months, you found an investor. If I like this offer, I'll take the offer entirely at the same terms and valuation. Right? So there are certain rights you need to define. These rights are very important because if you do ROFR, if your agreement is an ROFR, you come as a Dexter capital, take my mandate. Your mandate is super attractive. I will not take it. Because you might say, boss, I have raised the capital from my own investor, so what fee I should pay? And I'll say, if you are ROFR, I don't even advise you. Or if you engage with an investor, he will ask you, do you ROFR? If you are ROFR, we are not even engaging with you. So your capital raising as an event becomes difficult. So that you need to define. One of the most important clause once again is investor exit. So investor exit, a lot of investors would ask, so investor exit, first of all, we need to realize is an important right for investors. Every investor who is coming, he's a financial investor primarily, and he would need an exit to realize the return. Right? So if he's asking for exit, that's very not unreasonable. He's very, very reasonable in asking an exit. Typically in India, fund structure are 8+2, which is 8 year fund with a 2-year life, so 10 years, sometimes it's 10 years. So typically investors would ask an exit after 5 years, which is again very fair. What is that you need to define how exactly that exit would happen. So they will be typically with multiple steps: IPO, buyback by company, buyback by promoters, strategic sale of investor shares, strategic sale of investor share along with promoters, strategic sale of investor share along with promoters, along with other shareholders, and lastly drag. Drag means if none of the exit scenario has occurred after 5 years, 6 years, I can find a buyer and you have to sell the shares to whatever value I assign. You again need to protect yourself in that situation because drag can also be utilized in a scenario when investors selling your company to other company which is another portfolio company of him. Right? So again you need to protect yourself along sort of those clauses. He might also ask for an IRR. He said, look, I as an investor has 30% IRR. So you need to give me 18% IRR or 20% IRR or 24% IRR. So you again need to protect yourself. What are the clauses that you can commercially agree? What are the clauses you cannot commercially agree? When
the minimum IRR is guaranteed and if it does not occur, what will be the scenario? Because the business is not different so much.
Right. So if the minimum IRR is agreed, right, what typically happens is if you agreed in minimum IRR and if you are not able to provide, let's say give a scenario. You give, let's say, a 20% IRR to an investor who put 20 crore in your company at a 100 crore valuation. Okay, I'm not doing math. Let's say 20% IRR means in 5 years it becomes 2.5x of multiple, which means 20 crore he should have get 50 crore back. Okay. After 5 years, your business unfortunately could not reach that stage, and your value is 150 crore only, which means it is 30%, 30 crore. If he is a smart investor, he would have also figured out way to implement this clause, which means he will say, now you need to sell those extra share and give me that 20 crore. Which means in the beginning you actually gave 20%, but now if it's 150 crore, you actually have given a 35% equity. Right? So this is how it will be, let's say, effected or implemented. So what you need to be aware is what are the clause I am agreeing or I am not sure of the agreeing. Right? When you are sort of defining, drag is very, very important. You might be a great company. A drag becomes very important clause for investor. A growth company, when you sell controlling stake, a controlling stake can have a 30 to 100% premium for a company. While for you, if you sell the company, your identity, your respect, your future gain in that particular company might lose. I'll give you probably an example. You have heard of this person, Mr. Raman Roy. How many know him? Yeah. He is called father of BPO industry. He is the guy who found Genpact, which is close to $3 to $4 billion company today. The second company he founded is Spectramind. Genpact was not his company, he was an employee at that time in GE, obviously senior employee. Genpact was started as an internal BPO arm of GE, which became independent BPO. Today is listed, very well functioning company. So obviously he started Spectramind. Chris Capital, which is formed by Ashish Dhawan, they invested in Chris Capital in the Spectramind. The company was doing pretty well. But this company was also a star company of Chris Capital portfolio. So when it comes to an exit, while a good exit, 30-35% exit could have happened without affecting the drag, Chris Capital affected the drag, which means they got, instead of 35%, they got higher return. What happened? Raman had to sell the company. Now he sell the company, obviously Raman got his fair share. It's not that his value became lesser, he also get a higher value. But after that, it took him 2 years to start a new company, which is Quattro, in which my previous company, Almost Capital, invested. And after that, Quattro went on a different journey of its own, right? Obviously, it's a well-established company doing quite well. But had Spectramind continued, maybe Raman's net worth would have been 5x more than what is today. He is very well-to-do guy, very respectable guy, extremely well-to-do. So you need to again negotiate your clause drag with a very, very open mind. You actually should have a right, even if you are affecting a drag, that instead of investor using the drag, I may counter the drag by bringing my own investor. If as long as whatever price investor is dragging me, I am able to offer similar price. Or you may have this thing that I would not sell my entire shares. So this is a very difficult clause to negotiate. You need extremely great advisor to negotiate, because investor argument is, boss, I gave you 6 years. You're not providing me exit. So providing a fair exit, you can always block the exit by using this clause. I would never give an exit, because a company who is buying, if you're not selling your shareholder, nobody will buy the company. So again, you need to be very, very, I would say, smart to negotiate this clause for promoter.
But drag happens only if you're not saying the case where you're able to give him the IRR what is required, then he cannot resort to drag, right?
Yes, if you have provided an exit, he cannot resort to the drag. I agree. Let's take a scenario. In 5 years, you actually provided an exit, and he chose not to exercise that thing because he knew that I have a drag 1 year later. He knows that when I go to the market, there will be a lot of buyers, because he meets those buyers actually in portals, and he knows that these buyers will be able to buy my company. He's already socialized in those companies. So if you have not negotiated that, if I offered you an exit and you are not exercised, which means your drag should fall away, then you will still go for a drag, which means you will still lose the control of your company. So again, these are very, very finer elements. The elements I'm talking about are probably much finer than a, let's say, standard exit. And you may not have an opportunity to negotiate on behalf of this thing, because sometimes investor gets very irritated, and if you are only one investor and you need the capital badly, you might want to go ahead. But you still need to at least educate your promoter, this is what it means. Promoters are promoters. They will sort of go ahead and take the company because at that time they need the company. But your job is that you are fair to advise the promoter in all aspects. One more thing is reporting and compliance. When you are a promoter, you might file TDS late, you might file your GST slightly late. It's okay, you pay a penalty. But when an investor comes, he will put a lot of reporting requirement. You need to ensure that you do it. A lot of promoters would not even do Shop and Establishment Act. A lot of promoters would not even go for a trademark. A lot of promoters would not go for IPR. So investor would force you to go for everything. I would say 70-80% of the people in India use computers without licenses, proper licenses. After investment, promoter will push you, you need to get a license. Sometimes we devise innovative mechanism to save promoters cost for PFPSI, because you have hired a contract agency which is not paying PFPSI. You want the agency to work at 9,000, 10,000 rupees without following labor law. The guy is able to work because he doesn't care about labor law. Yeah, what labor law guys will do of me. So when you take investment, please be aware all the compliances you need to follow, which means by just following the compliance cost, your cost might be 2% higher, which you need to factor in your business plan. By having an investment, your reporting requirement may also be higher. You may not need a CFO. Your CFO must be an accounting CFO. Somebody who prepares a check, pays it, or somebody who is just a tally entry. But he may need a CFO who is a guy, who is a smart guy, who can also do analysis, who can prepare a business plan, who can help. So you may need to hire a CFO, and again CFO you may not be able to hire without permission of your investor. You may be working with an auditor who is a local auditor. But he may say, I only need Big 4, I only need like Big 8, or I only need Big 10. You may not have a CS, which is complied by company law. You may not have an internal auditor, which is again at a certain level, you need to have an internal auditor. So all those compliance and reporting will come into picture, which means more hassle for you, more reporting requirement for you, more costly. You should be ready for that. Ultimately, it's good for company because he is aligned with you. But please be aware that part you may have to require to do that. You may have to send MIS, you have to do a board meeting, you have to discuss with him, so those elements will come. Generally, in whatever scenario, during the transaction and the post of the transaction, if you are an equity investor, while liabilities are more than a promoter, I would say responsibility is probably as a collective. So even in a scenario where you may have non-alignment with your investor, it's better to have patience, lot of patience I would say, to ensure that you are aligned with your investor. Once you are investor and after that having a disagreement or a more than disagreement on files, probably would not be good for the company. In that case, it's better to, let's say, resolve the differences in an amicable manner. Even if those differences reach to a certain level, those cannot be solved. You need to put forth a mechanism of arbitration, mechanism of which court it should be done, etc. Predefined and implement. So these are the things which you need to advise your promoters in all, I would say, negotiation. Any questions you have, feel free to ask those questions to me. Happy to advise. I have done these things like more than 50 times in the last 12 years. And have ensured that any company that, as a Dexter we have advised, the promoters have an agreement which is literally they can live peacefully without any sort of problem. Yeah.
So couple of things. One is on a general perspective thing. Like say, if a promoter is negotiating with an investor, should you ignore the downsides more? Like say, for example, a liquidation preference or say
you're looking at valuation cap. Say, forget the lower valuation cap because you're also telling the investor that hey, I'm not in this for the worst case scenario. Okay, I'm fine to give up the worst case scenario, but let me look at other things which say maybe a higher valuation cap or something which is more positive oriented.
Right.
So that's more from a perspective scenario. One question. Second is on a specific scenario, something like a ESOP. Say now, generally when somebody comes in, you'll have they'll say, okay, you need a 10% ESOP. So what happens is pre-investment, everybody dilutes. This is mainly the promoter.
Okay.
Now say this is only on a fully diluted cap table. Now the investor comes in before the ESOPs are issued. Say there is an exit event.
Right.
So technically what happens is at the same cap table, everybody gets to, everybody is taking an advantage because for that 10% everybody's shares is becoming higher.
Okay.
So do you see a case where, agreement says that in case there is an exit event before the ESOP percentages are fully utilized, it should draw back to the promoter, and also the mechanism because of this whole section 56 and all that being in place.
Yeah, so both the situation, I think I would say promoters, while they are extremely optimistic people, and they would undermine their own, let's say, risks or downside. Just for agreement's sake, they should protect their downside also pretty well. The question you asked in a convertible scenario, a lot of promoter would say that instead of straight equity valuation, I would want a convertible valuation, which is the investment that you are putting, and this is more of an angel or bridge or seed round that typically happens. Your shares would be 20% discount, 25% discount, 20% discount to the next round. Investor would say that if you are not able to raise next round in 12 months or 18 months, you will convert it a floor valuation, and he may negotiate a low floor valuation. You may be okay with that, keeping in mind, look, I will raise the capital. I am actually having this two parallel discussion with two investors who will come ready to invest, right? So I would strictly say that a business is a continuum phenomena where sometimes there could be extremely positives or sometimes there could be unexpected negatives. You should keep those in mind, both, and you should probably put a fair band or fair timeline for both. Regarding ESOP, it's very fair that investors say that to grow your company you need to hire a lot of people, where to incentivize retain you need to give them ESOP. What we want that ESOP pool you create today rather than after we come, because after we come then our shareholding becomes diluted. You can create ESOP before, and when you are doing valuation discussion you should keep that mind in ESOP. If you are done in valuation discussion 100 crore, let's say he is saying that I will put 90 crore, you are at 100 crore, and you went ahead and he agreed on 90 crore. But is it 10% ESOP, pre he coming in, the 10% will affect your shareholding and it becomes 90 crore itself, right? So you should keep whatever valuation you are discussing that I may need to create an ESOP pool before investor comes in. The way to protect a promoter is that in case of a liquidity event, if an ESOP is not utilized, it should come back to promoters. Investor would argue, or if it's any person has left his invested share, should come back to this thing. Investor might want to argue, look, it should not happen, it should go back, it should be nullified, and everybody's shareholding would rise accordingly, right? In which case, if he's a 25% shareholder, he actually got a benefit of 2%, 2.5% of free equity, right? So you should ideally say, let's do this thing. So the way you should say that, look, we are not greedy. The reason we are creating ESOP is, if we need to hire somebody, we have an ESOP pool. So if there is an ESOP pool, it should come back to the company, and we should be able to allot ESOP along with the permission of board. In case of a liquidity event, that ESOP, whatever is invested ESOP, should come back to either promoters or shareholders excluding investors, because ultimately it came from promoters themselves. Again, it's a difficult thing to negotiate, but ideally if you try and be very, very reasonable, sometimes you do. It's also not a very, very standard thing. I found a lot of time presenting Indian agreements.
See, here, say for example, the investors are fine with it. They kind of understand that they're in principle agreement. But how do you do that from a mechanism? Like say, it is say 80 for promoters, 10 for investors and 10 ESOPs. How do you draw it back? Because you can't issue it at a face value because there is again the section 56. So from an actual mechanism point of view, how do you still do it?
There are a couple of ways to sort of do it. Any ESOP you can do two ways. One is board exercise mechanism, or you can have a trust mechanism. Okay. So when you are creating the cap table or a company taking the first investment, you provision a pool. So you say that I have 10,000 shares. Investor will take, let's say, 20,000 shares. You say that my 10,000 shares actually become, investor had 2,000 shares. My 10,000 shares will become 11,000 shares. So you created nearly like 9-10% ESOP, right? Now, either you can create it using a trust mechanism, if you want to do it, or you can just say the board administrates the mechanism. When you have provision for it, from a fully diluted perspective, which is investor perspective, he will always see the cap table has 11,000 plus 2,000 shares, while in factual position is not created. ESOP etc., you can put a clause in your article like those can be created at a face value. So you can define ESOP exercise price. So that you can say that from a perspective of ESOP, I can let's say do that because I am creating before the investor coming in. The event of that creation might happen in future whenever the exercise of let's say happen. Okay. So technically from company perspective, let's say you can do that when the liquidity event is happening. If shares were not created, okay, so automatically only the shares which are in existence they are coming to picture, right? In that case, you don't have to give any extra share because those were not created and everybody's shareholding let's say so get adjusted accordingly. If you have created those shares, then you have to put a provision that whatever trust mechanism he has to sell those shares to promoter at a par value. In a bilateral transaction, you can do transaction at a lower value than whatever value defined in company law.
But there again, this whole section 56 will attack, right? You're doing it at a face value where you have raised funds at a very high value.
Correct. If you capture those in your documents properly, like in your board documents, in your article of association, then you will be able to avoid it because intent and mechanism that is predefined. Look, we are creating 1,000 shares 10, only the event is happening in future. So the decision of creating those shares is taken today. If somebody wants to be conservative, he might create those 1,000 shares today and be done with it. Okay. When you create the shares, question is whom the share belongs to. Because it belongs to promoter, then it's not ESOP. Right? In that case, then you have to go through the trust mechanism, you have to create the trust, etc., which becomes again an additional compliance cost.
So it is not in the trust, if you are not going to trust again, and the shares will be the name of the
Shares will be?
in the name of the promoter itself.
Correct. Then it becomes difficult because then you are saying that shares belong to the promoter, so there is no ESOP that say. Then technically you might say, look, any person who you are doing it, promoter need to share, transfer the share. This is more difficult mechanism because that's intent. You might put an agreement if promoter says no, but you will do. Right? So ESOP, because ESOP policy is government driven, there's a lot of how you give ESOP, there is a ESOP factored into your audit, etc. So then you would want to be able to do it. That becomes a more of a mechanism where you are saying that any person who joins, I will transfer these shares, etc. You can create a different name for ESOP. It's like promoter SOP or something. You can create that.
But you can't issue ESOP to the promoters also, right? That's also something which is not.
You cannot do that, correct?
Post ESOP situations, post investment situations, ESOP, how do you deal with that? Right? Is it now is happening in almost everybody wants retain. In such a case, how do you deal with that in the agreement for non-generation with the investor bonds?
No, non-dilution part is taken care by
ESOP
upfront, either ESOP or ESOP pool. Okay, so you factor in the dilution part. What you want to create is sufficient ESOP pool, with maybe 5%, 7.5%, 10%, 15%, such that in future that situation does not arise. If you have created the pool and if you issue shares, dilution would not happen because you have taken that benefit upfront. What you also need to do, you need to
further grants after investment.
Further transfer investment.
Grants for the grants of ESOP.
You can give whatever grants as long as a sufficient pool is created. Dilution would not be impacted because you already created the pool more than what the grant, because you create a pool of 10%, but grant might happen for 0.5%, 1% to an employee. So it would not impact overall fully dilution basis, it would not impact on that basis. What you would still need to do that ESOP policy would be a board administered policy, and whatever you do, you need to still inform your investor. Look, these are the people I am informing, etc. And you need to also issue grant later. You need to define exercise, vesting schedule, etc.
Some limits are.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
once the term sheet is given, and there are some terms where the investor and promoters have not come to the agreement or compromise.
Right.
Then how to go about whether you should, whether promoters should go to some other investors, or before issue of the term sheet by one investor, he can simultaneously try with somebody else also.
Right. So I think this is a very, very interesting scenario. Sometimes promoters get overexcited, even if somebody says that we are looking to invest before even term sheet, and they pause their other discussion because in excitement they feel ki why to put other bandwidth. Sometimes they become also aggressive in communication to other investors. Okay, boss, you are not even giving how to us, and we are not continuing the discussion with you. Till term sheet is signed, ideally for any promoter, whatever parallel discussion they can have, they can have. Because till it's signed, you can never guarantee that it's confirmed. Okay? When you are negotiating that term sheet, you need to be aware what are the clauses which are, like you can break into three components, what are clauses which I can give up in favor of investor. What are the clauses I need to fight and have it in my favor? What are the clauses which are deal breaker both for me and both for investor? And obviously then you need to take a commercial call. For example, you are negotiating a drag and you are trying to say, no, I want to negotiate drag very firm. Nobody negotiates drag at the term sheet stage. Okay? So then you need to also take a call, okay, what is it that I can negotiate, what is it that I cannot negotiate? Because sometimes negotiation will also happen at documentation stage. If investors put a clause, it's let's say 2x liquidation preference, it's better to negotiate upfront rather than put it at documentation stage. Right? So you would need to take a very, I would say, balanced call based on A, what is all the clauses which are fair, how unfair, etc. Your perception of the investor and the valuation. Second is, what is alternate option? If you are a company which is really need a cash, if you don't have a cash, 2 months later cash will dry up and you might have to shut down, maybe it's better to take that offer maybe in unfair terms. So that really depends on a promoter's assessment of that situation, both from commercial perspective, alternate offers, from legalistic perspective, what is it that I can do? Any other questions?
The investor normally uses Big Four, right? So
Correct.
what is the legal sanctity of that? Is it really legally valid?
So there are two things. One is ask. Is ask legally valid? There's no legal thing in ask. It's their preference. Okay? Look, we feel that Big Four probably have more credibility, that they would not be agree to any unreasonable thing that a promoter may be doing in account. So that's a protection for them in that perspective. Okay? Or you can say protection or a comfort for them in that perspective. Okay? Once it has been agreed in a shareholder agreement, then you are bound to appoint them. Then you have to do that. So then obviously it has a legal sort of enforcement.
In the FDI policy, FDI foreign direct investment policy,
Right.
there is a clause saying that the local auditor also will be a joint auditor in that case.
If there any clause which is a government clause will typically override any bilateral clause. So if a clause that's there in FTA policy, okay, and you have this thing that it has to be joint audited, it has to be joint audited. You cannot do business in operation where you are taken in FTA and is non-compliance in FTA. Sometimes some of the recommended clauses by government may be overridden by this thing. So in non-compete, government might say that I am okay with the non-compete of 6 months. Investor come and might negotiate to do a non-compete of 2 years. If you agree, unless you want to litigate it, you may want to be bound by that. Any other questions? Great, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be in company of all of you. I live in Bangalore. I will leave my cards here, so you can probably take contact details with this presentation I given. If you want to get a copy of presentation again, you can contact and take the copy of the presentation. Thank you everyone.
Friends, this is the eye opener. No? The perception from the promoters are always supposed to be different, and to understand that we had this session, wonderful session. Devendra, you have done a very good job. Big round of applause. Now I request our past managing committee members CA and CS Govind Bhatt to come forward and present a memento to Devendra Agrawal as a token of our appreciation. Devendra, I think we would like to have one more session with you and maybe a detailed work session, because a lot of rich practical experience that you carry is going to be very useful for our members. look forward for next round. Friends, let us break for 10 minutes tea on the terrace and assemble back for the next session. The next session is going to be handled by Venkat Satyanarayana, who is already present here, and let us break for 10 minutes tea. Thank you.